Aransas County, the ecosystem capital of the Texas Gulf Coast, where coastal ecosystems are inspirational reminders of our natural surroundings. The Rockport Cultural Arts District is pleased to present Aransas, Living a Legacy, the story of the endearing power of nature, its fragility, and a man who dedicated his life to care for it. Enjoy.
I feel like I've really done something, to make the world a better place. I'm satisfied leaving something behind. All of us want to leave something behind that shows we were here. And we helped our kids, our grandkids. And so that's how I feel. I feel like I've really done something. To achieve successful habitat restoration or creation, it requires dedication. You must care, and I really care. Now, these projects take 5-10 years to complete, and so you have to stick with it. You have to keep, if there's an obstacle in the way, I have to find a way to overcome that obstacle. My name is Charlie Belaire, and I'm an environmental scientist specializing in coastal restoration of habitats in Texas mainly and some in Louisiana.
The thing about Charlie, when you see Charlie, you get a smile. You always get a smile out of Charlie, and he's always got something to positive say. He's been in this business so long. He's got many years of experience, lots of ideas on how to do things, and when he has an idea, you really need to listen to him because it's probably a good idea.
I was born in 1946 in Port Arthur, Texas. We lived on a bayou, Hildebrandt Bayou, and as a child, our recreation was to go outside, and we had all types of wetlands. We played in them all the time. The mud was a very comfortable thing. Having mud was part of our lives.
He grew up in the bayou. He was on the high school football team, and they even played football barefooted. And it was a very different upbringing than most people have.
The Hart Research Institute has had a connection with the Coastal Bend Bays and Estuaries program, with a lot of restoration projects around the Coastal Bend area. And Charlie has been key to almost every project that has come in having to do with restoration.
To do a project on the Texas coast typically requires 3 major steps. First step is to prepare a plan of the project. Second step is to obtain a Corps of Engineers permit. The third step is to bid the project and select a contractor to construct it.
And the goal of these projects is that they continue to naturally function. They don't depend on man-made input to keep going.
About 2005, Texas Parks and Wildlife was looking for a way to protect the remaining wetlands here at Goose Island State Park and find a way to add additional wetlands to restore what had been lost over the time from erosion. The first step is to find a way to protect what you're going to build from erosion and from hurricanes. First step is typically a breakwater. Breakwater is typically made of rocks or other material that have expected long life. Once the breakwater is built, the dredge material is transported to the site behind the breakwater, and once the dredge material achieves a certain elevation, there would be marsh plants or seagrass or other vegetation established behind it. It's about 5,000 plants per acre.
We help the funding process of getting volunteers and others out there planting seagrasses in those areas to bring that marsh back. If you protect it, you give it what it needs, it's going to grow, and it's going to continue to grow.
It took about 5 years from concept to construction. The project has been very successful.
Charlie Belaire did the recipe for habitat creation and restoration on the Texas coast. He is the pioneer. The uniqueness of Charlie and his mind and his observations and his trials and his successes, he's determined how to do it.
In 1989 or so, Mitchell Energy needed to come in here into Mesquite Bay and drill wells, and the channel had been pretty much filled in. Came up with 4 locations, 4 islands made from dredge material and built to the specifications necessary to get whooping crane habitat. Not only create wetlands and ponds for the whooping cranes to feed, but also to establish oysters on their submerged perimeters and create seagrass between the islands and Bloodworth Island. There was a 200 to 400 foot area where seagrass established behind each of the islands.
Just been a big honor to work with Charlie, and he's played such a big part in the whole area. We've been bringing people out here since 2003 to see the whooping cranes, and it's been a lot of fun to watch the evolution of these projects come together, watching the whooping cranes use them, watching the fishermen. Really rewarding, and also people really appreciate to be able to see it.
Over the years, the projects that had benefited this refuge by protecting those marsh areas is islands that kind of help with a lot of the wind energy that impact this area that do result in erosion are protected because of these islands that have been restored.
And Charlie is one of those guys that has the heart and the mind and the soul of how do we protect and preserve our natural systems.
In 2010, the local governments We're trying to find a way to stabilize Fulton Beach Road in this area along Little Bay and try to prevent erosion. What we came up with was a plan to build 1.2 miles of oyster reef.
I think oysters are pretty well known as a really powerful super creature. Magical really in terms of the benefits that they provide and sort of being. Each oyster, a 3-inch oyster, can filter around 50 gallons of water a day.
When you create an oyster reef, the oysters will grow and they will stick together, they will weld. They create a permanent structure under the water to help break waves.
An oyster reef is home to 353 or so different species within that reef. It's affected by high salinity, it's affected by too much fresh water, it's affected by oyster drills. Everything in the world wants to try to kill it, but it survives.
Our plans for building this reef were to place crushed concrete on the bottom. The contractor used a conveyor and conveyed with a conveyor belt the crushed concrete onto barges, which then went to where we staked off each reef, each of the 28 reefs, and then put oyster shell on top of the crushed concrete because we identified 3 small reefs on the shoreline of Little Bay. They were evenly spread from one end of the reef to the other. And each oyster puts out more than 1 million babies when they spawn.
And sure enough, we found live baby oysters growing on that project that had just been completed a couple of months prior. So it was really, really cool to be part of that and to see that, being part of this family that was working on environmental restoration and oyster reef restoration projects all up and down the coast for 40 years. Oyster Fest being our kind of community celebration, right? Oysters just a huge part of our lives and our community and our culture. Texas was the last state to get on board with oyster mariculture, so growing oysters in this way. We were the last state in the United States with a coastline to adopt this and authorize this sort of cultivation. My dad has been a huge inspiration to me for my entire life. He's been an inspiration to me to appreciate nature and try to understand it and do what we can to kind of protect and stand up for it.
This family, all of us, are obviously tied to the ecosystem. Hope that the work that we do is part of a culture, at least, that improves the ecosystem in general.
He is definitely a pillar of the community. Everybody knows him, everybody loves him. Yeah, I feel like everybody just has a story about him, how he's helped them, helped the community. Yeah, he's very well known and well liked.
'96 or '97, Kay Jenkins asked me if we could come up with a solution for an active dune here. It was a half a mile long, about 1,000 feet deep. The dune was active. They were concerned that it would continue to lose vegetation and asked if we could come up with a solution. I came up with a plan to plant the bottom of the dune with marsh hay cordgrass. It's a very resilient grass. It spreads fast and has a dense root system to hold the soil in place. So we planted a half a mile and watered it for 6 weeks and left it alone.
And those dunes is like a big shield. They're constructed to take the brunt of the storms, the winds.
San Jose Island had 6 barges wash up on behind the dunes during Hurricane Harvey.
So our job was, what is the best way to get them off of the island?
We were come up with a plan to restore the dunes.
And he came up with this ingenious plan to actually bring in a native hay, and we integrated the native hay with the sand that we were building the dunes so that they would have the seed bed that they would need. That was a great success. He and I share the same joys of fishing, of nature. I really enjoyed the time with him.
I don't know anybody else like him. Even after he sold his company and he's retired, he still gets up every day and he goes out and he's digging up plants and relocating the plants and getting the master naturalists together, and he's never stopped.
We're getting this forest and the adjacent prairie designated as certified wildlife habitat by the National Wildlife Federation. Purpose of it is to provide habitat for birds and other wildlife.
So what our group is trying to do, working with Charlie Belaire, is to help restore and return back to its native condition some plots of land that the county owns, that ranchers own. It's public land where they want to preserve our historical ecosystem.
You just reintroduce the native plants, and they're pretty good at taking care of themselves once you get them established. So over time we'll create multiple native habitat.
But also to provide opportunities for the public to pull up on the side of the road and step in and do a QR code and read about the value of these types of habitats.
Where we're standing right now is I was depicting the idea of the Europeans that came in here several hundred years ago. And so Charles has made it indicative of what was growing here 200, 300, 400 years ago.
And also it demonstrated that you can have native plants, you can have 40-something species or more to provide a native landscape anywhere in the county, anywhere in the city. To cure the future impacts to nature, we must educate our children and our young adults so that they realize virtually everything they do impacts the environment.
This is such an amazing spot that we have on the coast, and it's very beautiful, so we should keep it like that for the next generations to come on.
The nature is beautiful. You should always love it, so take care of it.
And what we're doing today is lighting a fire in these kids, getting them excited to do what Charlie Belaire did his entire life. We need other people to kind of take up that slack and fill that niche in society. And so I'm hoping today these kids will be that next generation to do what Charlie and others have done before us.
And it's inspiring. They can say, that's what I want to be like when I grow up. I want to be like Charlie.
He is a source of inspiration. He's a good example for people. He's leaving a legacy. He's legendary.
Winston Churchill, never, ever, ever give up.